Welcome everybody to the HoopsHabit Hangout. It's early. I'm a little confused as opposed to our later shows that we're all yawning and uncomfortable with. But this is our 21st edition of the program. We've got a returning guest, Mr. Anthony Young. He came running from his interpersonal communications class. How'd that go?
Man, why you ever bring that up? It was all right. It's raining, contrary to the sunshine you see, so it's kind of weird. But anything for HoopsHabit.
Well, it's 114 degrees here in Phoenix today, so there's not a whole lot of rain. It's flat out sun. We're hot. Aren't we hot, Gerald?
Man.
We are very hot. My computer might have overheated. Sorry for the technical delays, everybody.
Take the kids out to sweat.
My son is literally in a pool in the back playing right now, so that counts. Bill, how are you doing today?
64 degrees and sunny. Couldn't be happier.
That's South Canada you're in right now.
We the North.
Good enough. All right.
Not quite Canada, but, you know, it's close.
South Canada.
South Canada. Yeah, okay. The accent tends to be similar.
Today we're going to talk about NBA free agency, and of course, since we have Shane here, he is some would call him a Kobe stan. Should we call him that?
Yes.
We can call that.
We have to. I'm sorry. We're going to talk NBA free agency, and we're going to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. First up, Phil Watson, talk to us about Greg Monroe. What's going on with him?
Well, there's been a lot of chatter about the fact that there hasn't been a lot of chatter about Greg Monroe, if that makes any sense. He's one of probably the two premier restricted free agents still left out there, along with Eric Bledsoe. And I did some quick math and found out that there's only 3 teams left with the cap space to make Monroe an offer in the 8-figure-a-year range. And one of those, Philadelphia, is not likely because Monroe is a big man who's ambulatory, so that won't work. And it's way too early in Sam Hinkie's 35-year rebuilding plan to bring in a big price free agent. So that leaves Atlanta and Phoenix. The Suns could use the size, but Monroe's not exactly a rim protector. 0.6 blocks per game. So, yeah, not exactly Dwight Howard. And Atlanta has a pretty full house up front with Horford, Millsap, Antich, Muscala, and the rookie Adrian Payne, so I'm not sure there's a fit there. So what we know is there aren't a lot of teams with cap room left. That may leave the Pistons in a sign-and-trade situation with some team that has yet to identify himself. I imagine it'll be done within the next couple of weeks. I can't see either him or Bledsoe not having their situations resolved by, I would say, the first week in August at the latest.
Do you think the Pistons have the guts to try to get him to sign just that 1 year and let him go unrestricted and try to keep him there, or no?
The qualifying offer and let him go for 1 year? It's possible, but they would have to do something with Josh Smith in that case. I just don't see another season of the Monroe, Andre Drummond, Josh Smith front court smorgasbord happening, unless they can come up with some sort of an electronically controlled device that would send a shock through Josh Smith every time he eyed a 3. That would be the only way I could see that working.
Gerald, what do you think about Monroe? Good fit for the Suns?
I actually don't like the fit for the Suns. I got heckled a little bit in the article that I wrote the other day, but I don't think... I mean, obviously he'd be a major upgrade offensively over Miles Plumlee or Alex Len, but the Suns don't really need offense. They were 7th in the league last year in points per game. They were, I think, 9th in offensive rating. They're good on offense. What they need to take the next step and make the playoffs is a rim protector, and like Phil said, Greg Monroe is not that guy. He's a little flat-footed. He's a little slow defensively. Believe it or not, I'd rather take my chances defensively with Plumlee, who just finished his 2nd year, and Len, who was injured. But if he can stay healthy, I mean, he showed signs of potential of being that kind of rim protector that the Suns need. I think that offensively, Monroe would bring a lot to the table. I mean, he's a 15-10 guy, and rebounding-wise, he's a great rebounder. But, I think at this point, save some money. It's not worth the offer that they'd have to make to pry him away from the Pistons anyway. So just be patient, let those young guys develop, and go from there.
What do you have to add, Shane?
You know, with Greg Monroe, you've seen his attempts per game drop last year about nearly 1, so that was correlation with his points. But
Yeah.
he's an offensive guy. People know that. He's not a defensive guy like Andre Drummond. He's the exact opposite. But there's one thing that I've always wondered with these big guys is that why can't he or Drummond shoot free throws? I know that Monroe shot was like 65 to 70% last year. Still, I mean, I don't understand why these guys cannot get in the gym. And maybe Phil or Mike, you have an answer to this. Why can't they just increase their percentage year by year?
The hardest thing for guys with large hands to do is to get the proper touch on an outside shot, because they just physically they have trouble getting the ball up on their fingertips to get the proper release and the proper rotation.
Yeah,
it really is that simple.
Try to shoot a free throw with a tennis ball.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not that bad, but you get the general idea that there is no touch. You're essentially shot putting it up there, and that's
you can't
like
get the ball off the palm of your hand.
So
Right.
essentially, are we saying that like a Pau Gasol or maybe a Marc Gasol? I'm not sure what he shoots from the line right now, but with their big hands, are we saying that they're just they are just
but
known
see,
to be
those are
physical?
products of a different system.
Okay.
They teach fundamental shooting at a much earlier age in Europe than they do in the U.S.
So it's a
In the
developmental
U.S.
thing.
with little kids, a lot of times they just kind of throw them out there and let them play.
Now,
Yeah.
this is off the subject, but it makes sense for this conversation. Generally, as you guys know, men, women have different writing styles, right? Generally, women have cleaner handwriting than men, right?
Right.
Yep.
There's a reason for that. We teach our kids how to write at a certain age. Men, boys, develop later than girls do, but we're being taught how to do it before we've even developed. Same kind of thing with shooting these free throws and these guys that Phil was talking about. Trying to teach him how to do something when he's been doing it the wrong way for 15 years, or he was never taught the right way to do it in the first place, isn't something that you just snap your fingers and is as easy as it sounds. Look at a guy like Shaq. Shaq could have been the best player to ever play the game if he could make his free throws.
Yeah.
And you don't think he was in the gym all the time working on it, trying to get that straight? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
One thing
we've
about-
heard.
You're better to get somebody who's never tried it before than somebody who's been doing it wrong for 10 or 15 years. That's a lot of muscle memory that you have to correct.
Yeah. One thing about Monroe that I think, we talked about the defense and how he is likely to be more of a liability than an asset, but, he does average over a steal per game every year of his career so far. He's only missed 3 games. He's a guy that you can count on. But the one thing that I think he would make a huge difference for a team like the Suns is he was actually developing into quite a passer before Josh Smith and his circus came to town.
Yes.
Back in 2012, 2013, he averaged 16 points, 9.6 rebounds, and 3.5 assists. Go figure, Smith comes to town, maybe the ball doesn't move nearly as well. He averaged 1.4 less assists per game.
Well, okay.
Basically played the same kind of minutes.
It was the daily double of Smith and Brandon Jennings coming to town.
Yeah, to be
Who
fair.
else gets to see the ball at that point?
That's true. That's true. But my point is that, I think that Monroe would fit in a lot of different places, and he wouldn't necessarily, I think his offense would outweigh his defense, but specifically for the Phoenix Suns, like Gerald mentioned, they don't need more offense. They need a rim protector. They need a defensive rebounder.
It's more important for Phoenix, I think, to keep Eric Bledsoe than it is to go out and get a Greg Monroe. If they have to make a choice on a restricted free agent, they should keep their own guy in-house.
And, let's be honest, if they can somehow get Eric Bledsoe, even though they're reportedly far apart, there's not a better backcourt from top to bottom, I don't think, in the NBA.
Mhm.
I mean, you have the athleticism, you have the sheer skill with Goran Dragic, can do it all, pretty much. And he needs to get he needs a... People say he's not great of a passer, but if you watch him, he is.
He's better than adequate.
Yeah.
The big thing is that he's got no leverage. So, he and the Suns can remain far apart, but Bledsoe has absolutely zero leverage in that unless he can get some other team to get him to make an offer sheet. to extend an offer sheet to him that he can sign. That would force Phoenix into the situation the Rockets were in with Parsons, where they had 72 hours to do we or don't we. Nobody's made that commitment to Bledsoe yet, so Phoenix doesn't have any incentive to move on their offer.
And I'll let Gerald go. My bad.
Well, no, it's fine. But the thing about this is that there aren't that many teams that could make Bledsoe the kind of offer that would pry him away from the Suns, because the teams that have enough room aren't interested. Orlando and Philly, they're not interested in getting a point guard. And like Phil said, Philly's not interested in competing in the next decade. But the Lakers have already boggled up their cap space, so they can't get him. And honestly, if a team made Bledsoe an offer right now, they might be doing the Suns a favor, because it probably wouldn't be much more than what the Suns have already offered in terms of that 4-year, $48 million. So I don't see a scenario where Bledsoe isn't in a Suns uniform next season. And if you think about it, that's for the best. Like Phil said, the Suns don't need – their highest priority should be getting Bledsoe back, because they were one game away from making the playoffs last season, and that was with Bledsoe playing 43 games.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. Gerald, we'll stay with you. You want to talk about the Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love trade?
Yes, this has been a hot topic in the last few weeks. Both sides raging in debate over whether or not Andrew Wiggins should be traded for Kevin Love. The Cavaliers are reportedly, they've finally given in. They want to include Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett in a trade for Kevin Love to pair with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. On the one hand, they're sacrificing a potential superstar, and before when he wasn't going to be playing under LeBron, I would have said, okay, maybe potential superstar is a bit much. But I really do think LeBron could get the best out of this kid on both ends of the floor. And imagining him and LeBron playing the passing lanes on defense is it's pretty terrifying to think about.
I've mentioned that the other day in a piece that I wrote. Between it brings back memories of Jordan and Pippen.
Right.
On the perimeter.
And it would be, that's a potential dynasty in the making. But on the other hand, we are talking about a Cleveland Cavaliers franchise that is already worried about what LeBron's going to do 2 years from now, even though that contract is set up 2 years so that he can make more money with the new TV deal and the cap rising. Cleveland is going to do whatever LeBron James wants them to do. They couldn't be happier that he's back. Whatever LeBron wants, he's going to get. And LeBron wants Kevin Love. He's reached out to him. He wants him to play there. And LeBron's in win-now mode. This year's finals defeat left him on the wrong end of a 2-3 finals record, and he wants to add to his legacy. He wants every year to be a year where he's competing for a championship. And as much as Wiggins has tons of potential, he is not Kevin Love, who is in his prime right now, who just averaged 26, 12, and 4 last season. So it makes sense why they would want to pull the trigger on this deal. What do you guys think as far as trading Wiggins for Kevin Love?
Go ahead, Shane.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I wrote about this. It really gets to me that, they're in a tough dilemma here. You can either look at winning now, which in the next 1 to 4 years, they would be favorites in the Eastern Conference if Love signed that extension. And who's to say that he's not going to sign? If you have LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, that big three just might escalate to like the best trio this league has had in the last 2 to 3 years. With Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, obviously, but Kevin Love, obviously produced a lot more than Chris Bosh right now, and he's still a better outside shooter. Although he's only shot over 37.6% once, like Dunlap pointed out the other day. But it's either come down to winning now or winning for the next 15 years, because we don't know if Wiggins is going to be this Anthony Bennett bust, which that's impossible to be. And we don't know if Wiggins is going to be the next LeBron James. So tell me another scenario where you have a 19-year-old kid out of his freshman year in college that has had the chance to learn from the best player on the planet, You really don't find that.
So did you make the trade or not?
I would not. I would keep Andrew Wiggins, and I would stick it out for the next 10 to 14 years, whatever, after LeBron is retired and gone.
What about you, Phil?
For the people that support or don't support making the trade, here the question I have is this. At his absolute peak, the wildest, he turns out to be greater even than in the wildest expectations. Is Andrew Wiggins a 26-12 guy that can shoot from three-point range? If he's not, then you do the deal. And I don't see him as a 26-12 guy. Those guys are rare. 26-12 guys are rare, and if you've got a chance to get one, even if it is for the most promising wing prospect in the last decade or so, if you're in the position Cleveland is in, you got to pull the trigger on the deal.
For me, I cannot agree more that they should make the deal with Love to get him in there. A lot of people want to say, why don't you just wait? Wait it out a year. Let Love get into free agency, sign him as a free agent, bring him in that way. But that's not going to work because the Timberwolves are going to do something with him. They're going to find a spot for him. If they don't pull the trigger now, he's going to Golden State, or now we're hearing Chicago in there. If he's allowed to go to one of those places, he's going to stay there. They're not going to make a trade without him having some sort of an idea that he's going to remain. So if I'm the Cavaliers, I think I agree with Phil. You got to pull the trigger today. Don't wait any longer. Make the trade. Keep LeBron happy. This is not the time to dilly-dally, and especially with Love and a guy that has already proven that he's a little bit sensitive. He's a guy that he wants to be made happy. LeBron James, kind of the same type of guy. He wants to be, fawned over, I guess, in a way.
He wants to be loved, for lack of a better term. Somebody had to go there.
I think we also need to recognize that there's sort of this inherent kind of clock winding down factor here because Cleveland, the Cavs have never won a championship. LeBron's prime isn't going to last forever. I mean, everyone involved with the Cavaliers that wants them to win acknowledges that, as much as Wiggins would be awesome to develop and could potentially, LeBron could pass the torch to him one day, he's not there yet. If you bring Kevin Love in with Kyrie Irving and LeBron James, they're potentially Eastern Conference favorites now because you see the Pacers, they just lost their best playmaker. The Bulls, they're fully reliant still on Derrick Rose's health, even with, the nice signings that they've made this summer. The Hornets and the Wizards might not be ready yet, and the Heat, they retooled about as well as they could, but I'm still taking Kyrie, LeBron, and Love over what they've got.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Carmelo Anthony, I feel like he made an enormous mistake by chasing that extra year and staying with the New York Knicks. Apparently, Phil Jackson had some sort of Zen Kool-Aid that he fed him and made him believe that things were going to be wonderful. Just sit around and wait. We'll make it happen. We're going to talk a little bit later, but for those who have actually looked at the free agents next year, it's not an impressive list when you consider that Love and Aldridge will likely be off of that list. I mean, I don't see either of them hitting unrestricted free agency. So the bottom line is Melo may have done what's best for his family, and I applaud him for that, but in basketball terms, he made an enormous mistake. Even if a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. Turns into, Tim Hardaway Sr. light, if Iman Shumpert doesn't get traded, J.R. Smith pulls his head out of his, I just don't see the benefit in getting a year older while you're waiting around. Then you're going to have at least a year to get acclimated with new players surrounding you. Not to mention the fact that if this brand new coach that just came in struggles, by the time the Knicks are relevant again, Carmelo's going to be out of his prime. He's going to be 32, 33 years old. I'm not saying that he won't be effective at that point, but does he seem like the kind of guy that is going to have that kind of longevity to where he's going to still be a first-team All-NBA player in his early, to mid-30s? I don't think so. I can't see how, for the life of me, he didn't go to either Chicago or Houston. Both of those situations, he goes there, they're finals favorites, period. There's no question about it. Instead, he decided to stay home on a wing and a prayer and an extra, $30 million, however much the exact amount was. But I mean, at some point, you have to look at the dollars and realize that, like, what's the difference between 85 and 90 and 118 million? Maybe an extra generation of your family. I don't know. What do you guys think? Did Anthony make a huge mistake staying home? And what are the Knicks going to do? Phil?
I don't think he made a mistake in staying home. I think he identified what his priorities are. And if he's anywhere within earshot of a microphone whining about wanting to win a title 12 to 18 months from now, the entire sporting public should tell him to shut the hell up. You made your choice. Because the only way the Knicks are going to become relevant, Phil Jackson or not, is if James Dolan gets hit by a bus or decides to sell the team. They are never going to be stable with that ownership group. They're just not. So he chose the money, and good for him. If that's what he wants, great. But don't turn around in a couple of years and talk about how badly you want a ring. If you'd have wanted a ring, you'd be in Houston, you'd be in Chicago right now.
Yeah, it's not like he'd be taking this enormous annual pay cut. I mean, he's still going to get big money. Very likely have an opportunity to sign another deal and get that big money. Look at what Kobe did at that age.
Yeah.
$24, $25 million at that age. It's not like he's automatically going to not get that money at some point. What do you think, Gerald?
Yeah, I mean, I was really pulling for Melo to go to Chicago or to the Rockets because he would have been a great fit, especially with the Bulls having Joakim Noah cover him in the paint. Or, Dwight Howard, too, with the Rockets. Chicago's a better defensive team, so I think they would have covered for him on that end much better than Houston could. But either one of those would have been great destinations for him. And finally showing people that, maybe you can win a title with Carmelo Anthony as your best player if he has the right pieces around him. And I don't think we're going to be able to see that in New York. I think that he bought into whatever Phil Jackson was selling, and maybe Phil Jackson does have a plan, but like Michael said, that plan's not going to be in full effect for 2 to 3 years, and that's if everything goes according to plan. By that time, Melo will be 32 years old, 33 years old, and I think that at that point, the Knicks would need him to be the team's second best player if they want to win a championship. They would need someone who's better than Melo, and I don't see how the Knicks are going to pull that off in the next 2 to 3 years. It's a matter of choosing family and money in a comfortable situation. I mean, he is beloved by New York, by the people in New York. They understand that he's kind of, harshly criticized for things that aren't necessarily outside of his control. And I think he does want to go down as one of the greatest Knicks of all time, which he will, even without a title. But yeah, it's hard to defend it from a basketball decision standpoint.
Considering that the Knicks have won 2 titles and they were 4 seasons apart, there's a lot of guys on the the list of all-time greatest Knicks that don't have a title. So,
exactly.
I mean, that's fine.
Shane, what do you have to add?
There's got to be, at some point in time, there's got to be a guy that comes in and says, and kind of proves a point to where rings won't necessarily affect your image in terms of how you're viewed in legacy. And Melo probably just did that because he knows himself they're not going to, even at his 29 point per game best and still crashing the boards like a maniac, they're not going to be in position until 2016 to even be favored in the East or remotely close to being favored in the East. So he took the reward, the money, his family, Lala, his kids, growing up in New York over the championship, and still if he gets done with this 5-year contract and he doesn't have the title, he's going to be negatively viewed for that because, let's face it, at age 35 or 34, 35, whichever he'll be, there's not going to be a lot of room unless you team hop over to another big 3 to win a championship. You're not going to win on your own then. And in Chicago, if he was in a lose-lose situation here. If you go to Chicago and you win, maybe a championship or two with that unit that Tom Thibodeau has, are you going to be negatively viewed for doing maybe a LeBron James move, or is Michael Jordan going to come out and negatively criticize you? It's a lose-lose situation there.
All right, let us move on to our guest questions. Now, Shane is known as quite the Los Angeles Lakers follower, quite the Kobe. I like Stan. I have to call you Kobe Stan. I'm sorry. I like it. You are.
I feel stupid. I didn't know what a Stan was until I understood that it was a fan of the Eminem song.
Was it a picture of you? It was just like, I
call myself a dedicated supporter. That's what I call myself.
A dedicated supporter. Yeah, like a jock supporter. Okay,
I sometimes have leaned more toward the term apologist, but that's okay.
You might have to do some apologizing by the time we're done here. All right, first question I've got for you, Shane. Now, we touched on the free agent pool coming up here next year, the fact that there aren't any real game changers there if Aldridge and Love are off the board. Aside from them, you're looking at Marc Gasol, Rajon Rondo, Dragic, Rudy Gay. The Lakers have about $35 million guaranteed on the books. Who are they going to go after? And I mean, I know you like to think that the future is so bright, but what are they going to do?
Man, the goal has been try to get one this year with Melo struck out. Try to get one next year. Really, really try to get a Kevin Love. If somehow he's not in Cleveland, if somehow he's somewhere and it doesn't work out, you have to think maybe he wants to come home, from Santa Monica. He wants to come home and play with Kobe Bryant for his last year and give it a go-around there. That does not sound too lucrative right now. It does not sound too highly motivated for Kevin Love to do that. So I don't expect him to. I expect some failure next offseason too. But after that, and you're looking at you said LaMarcus Aldridge he'll get that offer from Portland. He said he wants to be the best player ever. And so you're really looking at guys around the Robin Lopez, Brooke Lopez, maybe a Kemba Walker type of point guard to come in, because who knows what the point guard situation is going to be with Jeremy Lin on that one-year deal after he'll be gone next year. Steve Nash, he better retire next year. And then the point guard situation is looking really hairy around L.A. Rondo, if he doesn't re-sign with Boston, I'm not expecting him to. I expect to be dealt anyway. So because he probably won't sign long term. I think Rondo would be the guy that could come to LA. He's not gonna get them to the playoffs by any means. If Kobe is relatively the way he was 2 years ago. So it's looking really slim. The big picture is 2016. I think we all knew that from the start.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying you're looking at point guards, and you're looking at throwing max deals at these guys and being turned down like Dirk Nowitzki just turned them down this summer.
Yeah, that had to hurt as a Lakers fan.
And the thing that hurt, we really didn't even know that they offered him a max contract, and then to find out that he sat there and said no right in our faces, that was kind of crazy.
Yeah. Gerald, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so the Lakers, with the 7th pick in the draft, they pick up Julius Randle. And then in the offseason, they decide to go ahead and re-sign Jordan Hill. And then they decide to sign Ed Davis. And then they decide to pick up Carlos Boozer off of the amnesty auction. So what the hell are the Lakers going to do at the power forward position? And should LA fans be upset that Julius Randle's playtime might have just taken a hit?
I love that second question, but first, I will say that I think they're finally rejoicing. I think they're finally making up for the lack of front court presence in the 2 years of D'Antoni. Dwight Howard was not happy with D'Antoni. He cannot stand the guy. And you had, Pau Gasol, agitated, he just wanted a better attitude around the league, around the team with D'Antoni. And Chris Kaman, I don't want to remember that in my wildest dreams. So I think they're finally making up for this front court depth that they lacked in the last couple of years. And Robert Sacre is not going to see the floor. I love the Ed Davis move, and I think that Ed Davis, he's still going to get around the same amount of minutes because I don't think that Byron Scott, if he comes in, is going to look at Ed Davis and view as he needs the more minutes over Carlos Boozer or Julius Randle. And with that said, I think that Byron Scott is one of the best men of judgment in this, out of the guys that are remaining in the coaching pool. He's going to be their guy. I read something today about Doc Rivers trying to seeing they're going to wait around for the Donald Sterling situation and if he'll come across the town to L.A. That's not going to happen. So you're looking at Byron Scott handling the Jordan Hill, who got massively overpaid in this market, and you're looking at Julius Randle he should be the future of the front court of L.A. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. If you spend your number 7 pick on a guy and you claim that he is going to be the hardest worker y'all have had in the last few years, then you got to make him the future. And I think Byron Scott's biggest ordeal is going to have to be, since he's a veteran coach, he's going to have to handle playing the veteran Carlos Boozer, who still has some left in the tank. But let's be honest, with the Chicago Bulls, he still couldn't score down the stretch in the playoffs, averaged less than 10 points per game in the playoffs. And he's going to struggle with that, or the Julius Randle, getting him the proper minutes, maybe 25 to 30 minutes that he needs in order to groom with a Kobe for his last year.
Satisfied, Gerald?
I'm still. I mean, to be fair, I do like the Ed Davis signing. That was a value signing. He's a good, he's a good backup big. But yeah. I just don't understand the Lakers rebuilding strategy. It's going to be bringing big names to appease upset fans.
Yeah, it's going to be a 5 to 6, guy rotation in there, and it's really going to be crazy in the front court. And I think that Carlos Boozer is going to get some nods because he's 31, 32 years old. He's going to get the nod sometimes, and that's where fans are going to have to sit there and sit back and struggle because Julius Randle needs the minutes. Kobe likes Julius Randle. I think Randle will thrive as a point guard, but until he develops a right hand, because I've watched him all in college at Kentucky, that left hand, that's pretty much all he has right now. And until he develops the pick and pop game with the jumper or the right hand, it's hard to go away from a guy like Carlos Boozer who came in on a low deal off of amnesty waivers. It's hard to go away from that in order to groom a guy for a year.
Except when your team's going nowhere and you have to start grooming guys because you don't have a chance to win.
Yeah. What was your theory, Phil?
I think somewhere in the front office of the Lakers, Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak understood what the 1-4 set was. They thought it was 1 guard and 4 fours.
May the fours be with them.
There you go.
So, I mean, you're looking at a Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, Swaggy, swap out a Boozer and Randle, and a Jordan Hill. That's what you're looking at.
The poo-poo platter.
It's great that they got Ed Davis as a value signing, but it's sort of counteracted by the horrendous overpay on Jordan Hill.
Oh, man.
So.
Hey, they got an option.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, Phil, ask your question.
Not that how much can the Lakers really expect from Steve Nash this season? And I know that there was some debate among the talking head types, but is there any thought of using the stretch provision to spread that $9 million he's got left out over this year and the next 2 and write him a big old check and send him on his way?
Man, that has been the toughest situation for anyone to swallow around this team, is that you want to use the stretch provision because what has he given you in the last 2 years? He's given you, I think, 50 games in the last 2 years. It's been a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, and he played 15 last year, started 10.
Right.
The only good game he had was on his birthday against the worst defense in the league that allowed 115 points per game in Philadelphia. That's the best game he had.
That's a heck of a birthday present, a game against Philadelphia on your birthday.
Yeah, and he had a lot of cupcakes after he scored 21 and 10 assists. But the biggest situation here, you want to use the stretch provision, but you don't want to lock that because you have to pay.
You've got to eat up the cap space. That's the thing.
And the next 2 years, and the next 2 years are the value years. And of course, Michael said we don't know what's going to happen with the free agency. Someone might up and decide to go to LA next year and surprise everybody. Don't expect it to happen, but you never say never in this league. I've learned that. But with Jeremy Lin, he's already been welcomed and praised by fans in the community. It really boggles me that people are viewing this trade for Lin as something for a long-term option when really it was just, to get that $8.3 million cap hold and possibly dump him off next summer, which is in all likelihood I would do. So fans are going to want Jeremy Lin to play, and he came out and said the other day that he wants a role. He wants a larger role than he did in Houston, because you had James Harden being ball dominant and Dwight Howard wanting touches, and then you had surefire shooter in Parsons. I don't know what the situation with Lin's going to be, but with Nash, I think you can expect, since he has been out playing summer soccer all year, I don't know what the nerve root irritation is going to be, but I know one thing: it's not fixable. That stuff is prolonging in his career. It's not going to get better over the stretch of 1 year or 2 years. He's going to have to deal with it. And being in LA, not the same training staff as Phoenix, but not horrible by any means, you're still going to expect the 50 games or less, and sitting out stretches, sitting out back-to-backs. This guy's going to be 41 years old. He's not going to be the starting point guard for the long haul. So if it was me, I would stretch it. I would stretch Steve Nash and try to work around instead of just prolonging it.
We're going to be playing our games here in a minute, but I got a bonus question here. Guards in the NBA since 1946-47, how many have played more than 50 games in a season when they've been 41 years old in February? Which Nash will be 41, next February. How many have played more than 50 games in a season? Shane?
3.
Gerald?
5.
Phil?
I'm going to take a 0 on that.
You are correct. It is 0.
Man.
No player has done that. Only John Stockton played. He actually played all 82 games in 2002-2003 at 40 years of age. Some quick math here. Averaged almost 8 assists per game that year. Shot 48% from the field, 36% from 3. That's it. Bob Cousy played 7 games. He was 41. John Long played 32 games. He was 40. That old man, Nat Hickey, he played 2 games back for Providence in 47-48. And he was 46.
Stockton's like the top of the pyramid in terms of what you want to shoot for if you're going to do that, because I believe in his last 3 seasons he played all 82 games and averaged double digits. So
yeah,
if you're 38, 39, 40 years old playing that much, and for a team that's actually trying to contend, I guess it's worth.
My point is, yeah. But
it was the best case scenario, though.
Yeah. My point is it's not going to happen. I think Nash might be completely finished. It just doesn't look good. All right, let's move on. We're going to play one word. Now, in the past, we haven't done this all that well because one word turns into more than one word. But today, one word. I'm going to give you guys a couple of different statements. You give me one word to finish that statement. The Lakers signing Swaggy P to a long-term contract was what, Phil?
Insane.
Gerald?
Awesome.
Shane?
Vile.
Wow, I'm surprised you go against your boys there. I like vile there, but I was going to go with loopy, as in, like, how loopy do you have to be to say, do you think that Nick Young wouldn't have accepted a 1-year deal or maybe even a 2-year deal with like an option mixed in? Instead, they're like, oh no, we got to make sure we don't lose this guy. We
got to keep Swaggy P happy.
The market is hot for him. We need to lock him up.
People fail to understand. I don't think they understand that he's almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
And you would not, when you look at Nick Young, you would think maybe 25. I would say 25.
Is their leading scorer
shows that level of maturity most of the time.
Yeah. All right, next up, blank made the biggest mistake in this year's free agency. Phil.
That's tough on the spot right
Houston.
there.
Gerald.
Houston.
Shane.
Sacramento.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, you know what? I got to agree with Shane on this one. Sacramento. Go out and get Darren Collison, who's a pretty good backup point guard. I got no problems with that. But you let your playmaker go for like $1.5 million more per year. Just say goodbye. Have a good one.
They got Alex Oriaki though.
They did. They picked up Oriaka. That is true. The rights to him.
Oh well.
I remember we were on the
starting engraving the trophy now.
I remember we were on the comment section during the draft, and we didn't like the Nick Stauskas pick, but he's actually changed my mind a little bit. But I'm not sure with Boogie Cousins. I don't know what they're doing.
I only dislike the Stauskas pick in the context of, hey, didn't you just use a top 10 pick on a shooting guard 12 months ago? Oh, wait, yes, you did.
Ben McLemore,
Yeah.
All right, next up, in 2014-2015, the Lakers will win blank games.
Are we still on one word?
One word.
Who's up?
Phil.
26.
Man, low ball.
Shane might go the opposite of that.
Oh, boy. Let's say 28.
Shane?
All right, now.
I'm going to mute you. I know it.
49!
38 games.
Wait, what did you say?
38 games.
Wow.
Okay, now that's actually reasonable. I don't think they're going to win that many. I got them at like 35 games,
Okay.
but that's reasonable.
They had the worst, the number one worst injury play season ever in NBA history. This will not happen again. If you add a few wins onto what they did last year, dude,
that's what happens. That's what happens when you got guys who have played 35,000 minutes in their career and you put them all together. I mean, they don't just automatically get younger.
You've got to pay attention to that best if used by date stamp that they all have on their heel.
That team was spoiled in more ways than one. All right, last one. Cleveland would finish blank in the East if they gave up Wiggins for Love.
First.
Gerald?
Second.
To who?
To the Bulls, but I'm an optimist.
Shane?
First by 2 games.
I think they'd finish first as well. They got to do it. All right, we got a new game here this week. Since one word and fill in the blank pretty much ended up being the same thing with our crew, we're going to play something called In or Out. I'm going to give you names of former Lakers.
Wow.
You need to tell me if they're currently in or out of the league.
Yes.
All right, first up, Sasha Vujacic. In or out, Phil?
Out.
Gerald?
Out.
Shane?
Out.
He is out. He played 2 games last year for the Clippers. He's an unrestricted free agent listed with Umana Venezia of the Italian League, I believe it is currently. Next up. Huh?
We might pay him $12 million.
Hey, new shooter. Luke Walton. In or out? Phil?
Out.
Gerald?
Out.
Shane?
Out.
Correct.
I saw him linked to some assistant coaches' jobs.
Exactly. Last played in 2012-2013 with the Cavs.
Man.
Next up, Josh Powell. In or out? Phil?
Oh, good God.
He's
I'm
a
going to go with
champion.
out.
He's a world champion now. Come on.
I'm going to say in.
Shane?
In.
He is in. He is under contract with the Houston Rockets for another year.
Very
Last
nice.
up, Devin Ebanks. Phil?
Out.
Gerald?
Is the D League in or out? I'm going to say out.
Shane?
In.
He's out. He played last in 2012-2013 with the Lakers, and then he just fell off the face of the earth. Well, I like that game. We may have to play that from now on. All right, next up, we're going to play over-under. This is our game that we play at the end of every show. I'm going to give you 3 different scenarios. You need to guess whether it's over or under. Current standings, we've got Gerald Bourguet is 1 and 2. He's got 80% of the questions right. Phil Watson's 1 and 2 with 70% right. Nathan Geese, if you're watching, yeah, you lost your only time, 2 out of 3. Matthew Tynan, our guest, came in with the Spurs. He's 1-0. And Paul Coro, also the goose egg. Sorry, buddy. Let us play. Years that Kobe Bryant has shot better than 50% on his two-point shots. Over or under 5 seasons? Phil?
Over.
Gerald?
Over.
Shane?
On twos, under.
You said under?
Yeah.
You are correct. He's only done it one time in his entire career, and it was 2012-2013. How about this one for you? Kobe Bryant has never shot better than 47% from the field in any season.
You have to take a lot.
I could not. I don't care. Hey, LeBron James takes a lot of shots too. I could not believe that when I saw it. I did not realize that. All right, so Shane Young takes the lead. Woo! You guys are terrible. Just kidding. All right, next up. Seasons that Kobe Bryant has averaged more than 28 points per game. Over or under 6 seasons?
More than 28?
Yes.
Under.
Gerald.
Under.
Shane.
I'm gonna say under. I'm gonna say 5.
Yeah, that's a good guess. It is under. 5 times he's averaged more than 28 points per game, and I believe he averaged 27.9 points per game one year. Last up, when playing 30 or more minutes in his career in the regular season, the least amount of shots Kobe has ever taken, over or under 8? Phil.
Regular season only?
Regular season only. Has to have played at least 30 minutes.
Okay, so that discounts the pouting I'm just going to pass game.
Right.
I'm going to go with over.
Gerald?
Over.
And Shane?
Over.
You're all incorrect.
Oh.
Under. 4 different times he's taken only 7 shots when playing 30 or more minutes. And get this, the Lakers were 3-1 during that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
These crazy stats that.
Were those all very early in his career?
No, they were actually spread out. I was quite surprised.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking the same thing when I was looking it up. I'm thinking it's got to be, a situation where early in his career he was deferring to Shaq or something like that or whatever. But no, it was spread out. All right, guys, that is our show. Hey, Anthony, you come on. You're the guest. Shane, and you win our game.
Oh man, dude! If it's about 24, he turns 36 exactly a month from today. Then I'm gonna get it right.
24 turns 36, so he's 60.
Well, that is our show for the day, guys. Thank you all very much. Again, during the regular season, we're going to do this every single week. During the off season, we'll be a little more sporadic, maybe once a month until the preseason comes back around. Maybe next month we'll talk about the FIBA World Cup and how some of the guys looked in there. For Anthony Shane Young, I can't decide which I'm supposed to call you. I know it says Shane, but my little box here says Anthony, so I'm confused. Gerald Bourget, the assistant to the regional
editor
who has to restart his computer once in a while.
It happens.
Phil Watson, I'm surprised he knows how to use a computer, but he's our main copy editor, and he's doing a bunch of work over at Fansided. You guys make sure and go check out his site, Dairyland Express. And for me, rock and roll.
Is here to stay.
It's here to stay.
Mamba out.